Looking at this excited, grinning birthday boy, it's hard to imagine Dan Caro was anything other than angelic.
I was a pretty crazy child. Prior to age 2, used to see myself shaking hands with imaginary people.
One warm morning in the New Orleans suburb, the life of this spirited 2-year-old took a traumatic turn. Dan's mother decided to cut the lawn, and she put her son safely on the porch to watch. But the second she turned her back, Dan went into the shed after a wagon. Stumbling in, he knocked over a gas can, and the vapors were instantly ignited by the pilot light in a water heater.
It was really an instant, a flash kind of, and this wave of heat just overwhelmed me. And being so young, 2 years old, I was very close to the ground, and the fire kind of went out from the bottom up.
Dan was rushed to the hospital. He had suffered 3rd and 4th degree burns over 80% of his body.
My parents were basically on their knees praying to God to end my suffering, that perhaps I would die, and that might be the best thing for me.
During a critical moment in Dan's care, a stranger approached Dan's family with a miraculous offer.
The Shriners of North America, which own and operate a network of 22 pediatric hospitals continentally in North America, and that organization opened their arms to me, contacted my parents in New Orleans and said, look, we've already made all the arrangements. We have a medevac standing by at the Air Force Base. We have a hospital in Boston, Massachusetts that's ready to accept Dan.
By the age of 19, Dan would undergo over 80 surgeries. Later, with the encouragement of his family and his unshakable desire to be like every other kid, Dan learned to tie his shoes, even play basketball. But being a member of a musical family in New Orleans, something else was calling Dan. Something seemingly impossible for a boy with no hands.
What did I do? Well, what does any logical, no-handed person do? He played drums.
Dan tried everything from duct tape to super glue to grip the sticks. During that time, he developed a whatever-it-takes attitude, and one day, something incredible happened.
He had a tennis wristband just kind of laying on the floor with rubber bands next to it, as though it was some divine creation, some miracle that was sitting there. And we picked it up, and we put them together, and it was magic.
Dan Caro is now an accomplished jazz drummer, performing at some of the top venues. His story has inspired thousands, so much so that he now speaks all over the world, encouraging others to live a life without limits.
The gift of fire is interesting because in my experience, through observing people and hearing other people's stories, not many people look at these major traumas in their life or these huge adversities that they experience as a blessing. I don't like the what-if scenario, because that's not what is. What is this, and you either accept it or reject it. If you reject it, you're going to have a hard time. If you accept it and embrace this and love who you are, then it's going to be wonderful.